Good evening. It is 7 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order and confirm that we do have quorum. At this time, I'm looking for approval of the agenda. Councillor Couvrette.
I move the agenda be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor MacArthur. Discussion, Mr. Morrison.
Thank you. Council has recently, since the package went out, been forwarded two items. One is a donation request from the Northwest Territories Health and Social Services Authority. It's before council just because their event where they're requesting the items for is early December. So that is before council if they should choose to add it to the agenda. Also before council is a home occupation development permit application before council if they wish to expedite the approval process. And then finally, I would be willing to provide a quick COVID update to council if so interested. I would recommend that these items be added under G, section G, item E, administration, numbers I, and I.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the agenda? Councillor Couvrette, are you amenable to the changes? Councillor MacArthur? Thank you. All in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you. And we have a delegation with us this evening. Welcome. Just a reminder to please use the microphone.
Thank you for your time this evening. So we had 159 calls for service for the month of October. I'll just give a brief rundown through our priorities. Just had a look here. I noticed a couple of our priorities, and when I updated them on our system, we're kind of lagging behind, I guess, in our a couple of our priorities, I guess, in community involvement and youth involvement, and I guess understandably to do with the COVID restrictions. I guess when we did the priority, established our policing priorities, that we anticipated that maybe they'd be lightened up coming through the fall and into the winter. So we had hoped that we'd be able to be back in the schools and doing presentations and whatnot. So we're still fingers crossed that maybe before the end of fiscal that those things that we'd be able to do a little bit more. So I guess if not, we'll be looking forward to next year because, I was thinking about that the other day. I have a ton of really good presentations for the youth on a lot, variety of things from drugs, bullying, online safety. I've got some really good presentations for elders and seniors on frauds and scams. And they've been really well received, and I try to keep it updated based on like the most recent frauds and things going around. So when we get to the point when we're able to do things publicly again, I like to really get those going, and those would kind of liven up the report a bit because I realize that section of it seems to be a bit dry. That I'm attending what meetings I can, and the youth involvement I realize is a bit dry because we're not allowed into the schools, and our involvement and things like hockey, I guess, they're really restricting what we're able to do. So we'll keep our eye on those things, and as they become available, we'll try to do more. I was talking to Bev with Restorative Justice and also with Social Services, and they're looking to get as restrictions permit, but get our interagency meetings going again too, which I think is an important key. I guess we have, as the mayor knows, we have try to do our monthly leadership meetings, which is good, but the interagency meetings I think address sometimes things on a smaller case-by-case basis, things that we can look to address, particular problems and things. So, and I found them in previous communities are really good to be able to sit down and talk at a more informal level. And when you sit down at those, victim services and restorative justice and social services, and involve the, all the First Nation partners that you're all talking about the same problems, and you're talking about it at a smaller level. So it's they're really effective at dealing with problems. So we hope to get those going again soon. And I think given some of the venues that we have in town, like the Roaring Rapids Hall and stuff, I think you have that bigger space that we can sit down and talk safely as a group, that we have the space capacities, or even the arena or whatnot, that you have that large area. As I think I touched on it, and I think I have a problem. I do this. I talk about things that have happened in the current month because they just happened and I want to report on them. But I mentioned that we had our Operation Impact over Thanksgiving weekend, and say a good news story. We had 7 check stops over that weekend, and 140 contacts with vehicles. And out of that, we had 1 ticket issued to an unlicensed driver, and many verbal warnings for minor motor vehicle act offenses, like expired registration, tinted windows, burnout taillights, that sort of thing. And like I say, very positive feedback from members of the public. No criminal offenses noted, and good overall. Property crime, again, we are not noticing a noticeable spike in any sort of property crime. And when we do, it's very noticeable to us if it is related to a prolific offender. So again, we haven't seen anything concerning up to this point. Just to reiterate, I know I may sound like a broken record, but we are seeing unreported property crimes that minor, like people claim to have their vehicles rifled through. Again, we hear these things third hand that are reported on Facebook. So if they're not reported to us, they're not reported. So we're encouraging people to just make that call, stop by the office, just to make that report. And we can sometimes tie this. So as an example, this recent one that went through Facebook, some people that probably were involved were apprehended, and they did have some property on them. But unfortunately, if it's not reported to us, we can't return some of the property to people. And we're not talking major, electronics or anything like that. It's just some personal property, but we would be able to return that to people if they did report it to us. So, we did have one gentleman report it to us. He didn't even have anything stolen from his car, but he just say, hey, I think, there's footprints around my car and the door was left open. I think somebody was in my car. So that's good for us to know that happened. So, and it's just as you're well aware, it's crime reporting, crime statistics, and it helps us to justify, we're looking at these reports and where's the crime happening and when's it happening, and where should we be out looking when we're out driving around at night. Our notable occurrences, again, nothing really out of the ordinary. We are doing we're doing a fair number of curfew checks, and we're trying to hold people accountable to those. So when we're doing curfew checks, we're keeping track of those, and it's not noted on the report, but when people are abiding by those conditions, we do track those as well. And when they're not abiding by them, we're either reporting them through probations, or we're creating breach files ourselves and charging those people accordingly. So, and as you can see, there's a number of them on here as well. Our staffing levels, nothing really much has changed. We're still waiting for our new transfers in. It looks like at this point it will be early January by the time the ice road gets frozen enough up there for them to get the truck into Inuvik and whatnot. So or it'll be just before Christmas, but I don't think they want to move a week before Christmas. So it might be just after Christmas, but they are coming. That hasn't changed. And our cadet should be here around the first week of December. So that's still happening, which is good news. And happy to report, I think I might have mentioned it the last time, but we do have, out of our guard recruiting thing, we do have 2 guard prospects with their application packages completed and submitted. So they're going through the security clearance process. We're having first aid training coming up next weekend at the detachment for our guard candidates. So we'll have that out of the way. So I'm hoping they'll be our time we get the guard clearance done, they'll be working probably within a month or two. So that's good news. It takes some of the current guards that we have are a fantastic bunch, and they put a lot of hours in, so it'll kind of help take some of the load off. It's just reviewing our crime statistics there on the third to last page, and I noticed, I don't know if you had a close look or not, but our current month is almost exactly the same as our the month October 2019 in terms of statistics and total calls for service, and we are looking pretty much on track to have exactly the same number of calls as we did last year, and in terms of the distribution types of calls, they're almost exactly the same. There's nothing really out of the ordinary. The only real difference I noticed were the types of calls causing disturbance and mischief towards the bottom. We seem to be a little bit down in causing disturbance and which the total count there, like if you look at 265 versus 452, and that's just, those types of calls are just like general intoxication type files. So and the only difference is causing disturbances outside of a residence and mischief is inside of a residence. And then if you look on the second to last page with the prisoner count, that's what I got thinking about it. That kind of accounts for a low prisoner count. So when those types of calls are down, that generally means that we have less of those types of calls, so less alcohol fueled type nuisance type calls. So that generally will reduce our prisoner count. So if our prisoner count's almost was 238 last year, and we're down to almost 100 less than that year to date at the end of October. So, and it's been a fairly slow month so far in November. So that's my take on it so far, is that we've had fewer of those types of calls, which is good news. It just means there's, initially I thought, well, we're, due to COVID for part of the year, we're making attempts to not put as many people in our jail cell. We're, making more attempts to find alternate locations for those people. And then, but then the calls would suggest that we're also not getting as many calls about those types of calls as well. So I would suggest that's good news as well. So that's, yeah, pretty much it. Nothing really else substantial for the month.
Thank you, Sergeant. Are there any questions or comments by council? Councillor Cox?
Just a couple of comments and then a question. Thank you again for the traffic enforcement and the check stops over the Thanksgiving weekend. I know, I believe a couple of councillors spoke to it during your last presentation, but again, it's good to see that kind of proactive police presence in the community. So thank you for that. And also, I know at the beginning you said you felt like you're not doing as much as you could under normal circumstances with the issue of enhancing with youth engagement in the community. I wanted to recognize that that it was good to see that detachment members participated in the pumpkin carving contest at Trailcross. So it's good to see that those opportunities are being taken advantage of when they do present themselves, although understanding that they are limited. So thank you for that. And then my question was, in general, I guess another comment about the notable occurrences for the month. I really, and I don't know how the rest of council feels, but I really value seeing the notable occurrences, because I think it gives us a bit of a picture about what's happening in the community, and also gives us a better understanding for the work the detachment is doing and the members are doing. I did have a question specifically about the quad incident on October 30th, and I was wondering if there had been anything happen beyond that. That was the quad speeding on Calder. which fled at a high rate of speed. And I was just wondering if anything had ever come of it.
No, and that's one of I would say several similar incidents. It's a fairly common thing. We'll see, reckless driving on quads and snowmobiles, and we'll make an attempt to stop the vehicle, and frequently the driver will choose to flee, and we don't. Other than make an attempt to stop the vehicle, we don't pursue the vehicle whatsoever due to safety reasons. So if we have, we'll obviously, we have 2 of our vehicles have in-car cameras, so we'll use that information if there's any identifying features, anything we can do to try to further identify the occupants. In that particular case, it was actually me that tried to stop them, and the passenger had a Darth Vader helmet on. So we were looking for the occupants for the rest of that shift, but we didn't have any real identifying features to go on in that case. So there's not a whole lot else investigatively that you can do. It was a green quad. It looked like millions of other quads in town kind of thing, and there's not much else we can do in that case. It's something that if you see it later on, and you can identify the driver based off their clothing, and you can further the investigation that way. But most of the time, it's kind of a dead end. And but certainly, like when the driver, other than the dangerous driving recklessly, it's a criminal offense. Doesn't matter if you're on a snowmobile or a quad or in a car. If you're driving at a high rate of speed up a street, it's dangerous driving under the criminal code. And then the moment that you choose not to stop for a police officer, it's also a criminal offense that you've committed. So they've, if the driver, at any point that we did identify the driver later, we could arrest them for those offenses. So, but like I say, it's tough one because you're weighing the initial offense and then the safety of themselves and also any of the subsequent community members. So you don't want to, we're obviously not going to pursue them in through town or anything like that, right? So, sadly, in most cases, it's we do what we can to try to stop them initially, and then try to do follow up. But yeah, most of the time there's not much to follow up on.
Supplemental, Councillor Cox.
Is there anything that the town could do to help in those situations?
I thought about it a bit, in certain circumstances, depending on the in-car camera systems that we have in 2 of the vehicles, they have the ability to produce still frames. So the camera system in the car, the way it works is before the lights are activated, so it's always recording. It's just not, it's capturing, but it doesn't record to the system until you hit the lights. And when you hit the lights, it records everything back 30 seconds before the lights were turned on. So it's got the capability so it shows you why did you turn the lights on? So it captures 30 seconds. So for traffic offenses, it's great. So we do have that capability to produce a still photograph of that. So there is that option, at some point to say, to print that photo off of that vehicle to say, does anybody know who this is? But, then we're going a little bit further to say, we'd be publicly putting that out there to say, and then we're getting to the point, we don't have any sort of media. We don't have a social media account or anything to broadcast that. And then we're not, it'd be, how do we do that? I guess is the next step, right? So that's, in terms of further the investigation, I guess that would be something we could consider, I guess. But
Thank you, Sergeant. Councillor MacArthur.
Councillor Cox already made the comment. Like myself, I just want to thank you and your members for doing a great job on all these check stops, and it makes people of Fort Smith think twice about especially impaired driving. They know they're going to get caught. And great job.
Thank you, and that's what I hope that those numbers from the weekend show, that we checked that number of vehicles and that many check stops, and we didn't come up with an impaired. So I think that's what I like to think it shows. Yeah.
Mr. Morrison?
Thank you. We're hearing anecdotally from our protective services group that a lot of their recent calls are mental health and substance abuse related. They seem to be seeing a jump in the past month or so. Looking to attribute it, it could be, of course, when the students get into town every fall. It could also, of course, be due to the isolation of COVID, right? I'm just wondering, what's your take on the feel on the streets?
We did notice a bit, I think, and I think the numbers support just a general increase in call volume in September. I don't have the September report here in front of me, but it seems to me the numbers were a bit up as from August, and I think, if you compare August to like September, October, I think September and October the numbers were higher, and I think just my local knowledge of the files from September and October, I think our calls for service were higher, and I think the members that have worked here previously, the people coming from out of town to attend school, I think that does increase our calls for service a bit for that period of time, and I think we do tend to see some people that we would normally otherwise see because they are coming from out of town, so some unfamiliar faces maybe. But as far as the mental health side of things, I honestly can't say that we've seen a relatable increase. Specifically due to to COVID-19 dragging on. It doesn't seem to be getting any better or any worse. It's just sort of, I think if we look where the numbers are compared to where they were this time last year, I think they're pretty much the same. So I can't see it related one way or the other that it's that it's higher or lower. It seems to be fairly constant. And again, I think I've mentioned this before, but it's hard for us to tell because it's, our job is to apprehend the person if we have the authority and to bring them to the hospital. And at that point, when they have that conversation with the doctor, it's hard for me to tell what's troubling them and why they've got to that point. So oftentimes that's a conversation they have with the doctor. So, what their reason is for being there, but. Yeah, I can't say I've really seen a massive, a large increase in mental health calls specifically due to COVID.
Supplemental, Mr. Morrison. Any further questions or comments by council? No? Thank you very much. Thank you again for coming this evening. We always appreciate having you before us at council.
Thank you very much. Have a good night. Thank you.
Have a good night. Moving on, we have approval of minutes for the October 20th meeting. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Cox.
I move that the minutes of regular meeting 10-20 of October 20th, 2020 be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Bolio. Discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Passed unanimously. Business arising? Councillor Couvret.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to, with regards to those minutes, just take a step back on the council meeting. Under other business, we were talking about the Shop Local campaigns. And I just wanted to re-emphasize the importance of that to our local business community. These are businesses who are actually very, for the most part, are very generous to our community in providing, like every time a hockey team or some type of activities happening, people are approaching them, and they're quite generous in their offerings of support. And I think it's just really incumbent upon our community to support those businesses, especially at this time of reduced business activity. So just again, to reemphasize the value of that, but not only businesses, but we should also be looking at our local artisans as well that do craft work, sewing, and all, just a range of other things, especially looking over the next month. It's going to be the tour of people going out and wanting to get gifts and things for loved ones. So look at our local businesses, artisans, and things before you go online and start paying tribute to places like Amazon. Like, our local community really does need that type of support.
Thank you, Councillor Couvrette. I think that you have taken my notes from Mayor and Council for later this evening, but I think that will be reiterated very clearly later on. Thank you. Mr. Morrison.
Thank you. I'll just take a moment to note that the town is working with the Chamber of Commerce and Tabasco Business Services to do a Christmas Shop Local campaign. It will be a photo contest where you take a picture of your favorite item, you post it, and then winners for the contest will receive gift certificates, where the funds for the gift certificates are coming from the Chamber. This is great to promote local business. It also helps people do their shopping before they walk into the store, so they don't have to wander around as much during COVID, right? So we're excited to participate in that with our partner groups in town responsible for economic development.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Any further questions or comments? Any declarations of financial interest? We'll move on to council business and introduction and consideration of committee reports. The first report is corporate services from November 3rd. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor MacArthur.
I move that the Corporate Services Standing Committee minutes from November 3rd, 2020 be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Couvrette. Discussion. All in favor? Thank you. Passed unanimously. And next we have the third quarter variance. Councillor Cox.
I move that the 2020 third quarter variance report be accepted as presented.
Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Bolio. Discussion. All in favor? Thank you. Passed unanimously. Next is council honoraria. Councillor appointment. Councillor Cox.
I move that Councillor Couvrette be appointed to the Council Honorarium Bylaw Review Committee.
Seconded by Councillor MacArthur. Thank you. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? One abstention, Councillor Couvrette. Thank you. Motion is passed. Next, we have appointment for Deputy Mayor, Councillor Couvrette.
I move that Councillor Smith be reappointed as Deputy Mayor.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor MacArthur. Do we need to amend the motion to say for a term ending this November 5th, 2021?
I don't think he has a lot of choice, given that elections are in September and October.
Okay. Discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Passed unanimously. Community Services Standing Committee minutes, Councillor Cox.
I move that the Community Services Standing Committee minutes from November 10th, 2020 be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Bolio. Discussion. Councillor Couvret.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I know I beat this death during the actual Community Services Standing Committee meeting under other business regarding the COVID-19 Secretariat. And again, in light of what's happening recently throughout Canada, our neighbor Nunavut, COVID-19 is probably here for a while yet. However, I still do not fully agree with the rationale for the development of the Secretariat. Looking into it some more, reporting, like the way the money's being spent is what I question. Is we've expressed a definite need for better enforcement, better testing, better public relations, telling people the necessity of wearing masks and everything like this. But look at it, over half of the Secretariat resources are going to be absorbed into Yellowknife bureaucracy. And even some of the reports I was reading, MLAs are talking about the visual aspect of this being a move to centralize authority, taking away the authority from the regions to make decisions on the COVID-19, with everything being centralized in Yellowknife and within this Secretariat. And again, it's sort of demonstrates the mentality of our current government is centralize. You look at it, they've done the same with the transformation team for the Aurora College. Everything's, the decision needs to be made by a group of people, make sure they're in Yellowknife. And I know I'm starting to rant, but I think as a council, we have to say this government has to respond to the needs of other regions other than the central bureaucracy of Yellowknife. And I will continue to make statements like this as long as it continues to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Couvret. The mayors and chiefs do continue to meet with the Premier, with the ministers of the various departments, and I will be sure to bring your concerns to the Premier and to the Minister. Are there any other questions or comments in regards to the Community Services Standing Committee minutes? All in favor? Thank you. Passed unanimously. And next we have the Municipal Services Standing Committee minutes. Councillor MacArthur.
I move that the Municipal Services Standing Committee minutes from November 10th, 2020 be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Couvret. Discussion. Mr. Morrison.
Thank you, Your Worship. You'll notice that the budget doesn't exist on this current document, and so I'm going to use. We did discuss the budget under or municipal services, so I'll use this as an opportunity to provide a brief update. We continue to work on the document, more just arithmetic work to work towards balancing it, small moves here and there, ground truthing our utility estimates and all those sorts of things. So nothing fundamental. As we've seen, it's a relatively balanced budget. And so we will bring it back to council for the December cycle for final approvals. Some of the things we're finding, we're digging down doing deeper analysis of our various numbers, for example, analyzing ambulance services to ensure break even of that operation and whether we have to modify rates to reflect that because of a slight increase in salary and wage expenses. One of the things we've seen is we've looked at a historical analysis of a medevac use and the actual numbers. We increased our medevac rates in 2015 and we have seen a trend downwards since we increased our medevac rates. So there seems to be a cause and effect occurring there. So that was interesting to find out. One of the other things we're finding is that when we calculate salaries and wages, we use a percentage to estimate benefits. We talk about what's called a fully burdened salary. Okay, so you get what you're paid, but we add anywhere between 15 to 20% value to our salary and wage calculations to reflect the benefits you earn. This is payments we make to support pension plans, to support retirement plans, these sorts of things. And what we're finding is that, again, I spoke last week to the benefits of investing in the employees and the resulting retention we've seen. Well, one of the other things is that our benefit load has stopped. So all those salary and wages continue to increase due to bargained increases, et cetera. Our benefit calculations have sort of stopped at around 19%. Based on the fact that benefit calculations use a base amount, and once you exceed the base amount, your benefit payments don't increase. And so that's an interesting thing, is that our benefit payments are stopped at around 19%, and we'd been estimating 20%, and they don't look to be going past that. Some of the non-quantifiable things that we're struggling to quantify is things like we have so many employees collecting long service awards now, which is the money you get paid once you've stayed for your 6 steps. We actually had never budgeted for that before, and now we have probably 20 employees that are at step 6 and gathering this. So we have to figure out how to budget for that. The other thing we're seeing is that we're seeing a lot of short and long-term disability as we wear our municipal services employees out, right? Employees that stay, for 6-7 years in a labor or in a role where you're constantly lifting heavy things, turning, pushing, hauling, and it was fine when you were 30, but now you're 40, now you're 50, and we're starting to see that impact on the staff. And fortunately, relationships have been relatively good with our insurer. Not always, but we always advocate on behalf of the staff to get their benefits. But one of the problems with the system when we talk about our ability to accommodate, right? Because there is a need and a duty to accommodate restrictions placed on the employee due to physical conditions. They can't turn left or they can't lift over a certain weight, is that there's only so much space in the organization for accommodation, right? You do eventually need people to lift things and push things and sit in a truck for X number of hours. And so we're struggling how to accommodate an aging workforce within the organization. Often you can plan to eventually get that desk job, get your supervisor's job. But for every supervisor, there are 4 or 5 employees. So not everybody can get that. And when you create an environment where everybody stays, then you're facing a situation where not all of them are going to promote up and get the jobs with lesser impact. And so this is one of the things that we're trying to get our heads around with our organization as we have a lot of long-term, long-standing employees. But that's what the benefit costs are for. So we're not really seeing them as costs to the organization, other than it requires a whole lot more heavy lifting on the human resources administration component of what we do. Other than that, again, the feel is that will be a relatively balanced budget. The talk I've heard from council is that they're considering a revenue increase, a property tax revenue increase, to support a reinvestment in specifically the bylaw department. My recommendation will most likely be, given that I'm not going to be able to redesign a bylaw department between now and the end of December, is that council supports a property tax revenue increase that creates a surplus that will go towards the bylaw department once it's designed, and that we put some capital money into the capital plan to do some study, to perhaps do some community engagement, to ask residents what they see as the future of bylaw enforcement in the community. And we study, we decide what it's going to look like, and then we take that surplus that we created through the budget process to build it and populate it. So this is one of the suggestions I'll bring to council in the December cycle about how to approach the need to reinvest in the bylaw department with the balanced budget we hope to present them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Any questions or comments? Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Passed unanimously. Moving on, we have an appointment to SDAB. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Cox.
I move that Liam Case be appointed to the Sustainable Development Advisory Board for a term ending December 31st, 2021.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Couvret. Discussion. All in favor? Thank you. Passed unanimously. And a second SDAB appointment, Councillor Cox.
I move that Jeff O'Keefe be appointed to the Sustainable Development Advisory Board for a term ending December 31st, 2021.
Seconded by Councillor MacArthur. Discussion. All in favor? Thank you. Passed unanimously. We have no enactment of bylaws and policies this evening. So moving on, we have one appointment. Councillor Cox.
I move that Kyle Voss be appointed to the Council Honorarium Bylaw Review Committee.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor MacArthur. Discussion. Mr. Morrison.
Thank you. Mr. Voss is the only person to submit an expression of interest for this this brave initiative before council. So I presume council will want us to hold off establishment of the Council Honorarium Review Committee until we can get more membership. So while I encourage council to appoint Mr. Voss, I will need to get more people, which will require the December cycle to get council approvals. So we will go back out and shake the trees harder to get more members in December.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Further discussion? All in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Moving on now to Mayor and Council updates. Councillor Campbell is not here this evening. Councillor Couvret.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of items. First is sort of just looking at some Facebook posts recently. There was one there that I was quite interested in about the development of a sort of a winter park with trees and things for the festive season. And I'd really like to bring the idea forward to the public that if they would like to pursue these type of ideas and have the town buy into it and support them, that posting it on Facebook is not enough. What they should be doing is putting together their thoughts and supporting personnel and come and present as a delegation to council. That way there we can hear what they want to do, and if the majority of council is supportive of it, then we can take action to help support that type of activity. So it's great to see these ideas out on Facebook, but one of them was an idea, and they were sort of saying, well, why isn't town reacting to it? Well, the reason town isn't reacting to it is we have not been properly approached to be able to react. So just a note to people that are fans of posting everything on Facebook, please, if you do have a great idea, bring it to us in a formal fashion. Second thing is just to recognize November as Movember. It's a cancer awareness for men, so support it if you can. And there's other great causes for cancer support out there, such as the Terry Fox Foundation and things like that. Again, people, it's a disease and affliction that is devastating to many families throughout our community. So support for research is always welcome. And again, just to throw another plug out there, support local business when you during your Christmas shopping. Look at our local artisan, and if you're looking for something to do, maybe do a donation on behalf of your family to other support groups in our community, the animal shelter. There's a lot of good causes out there that can use your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Couvret. Councillor MacArthur.
Thank you. I just want to commend the town crews for keeping the streets graded. I see they're already starting to do snow removal at each end of McDougall Road. The end east of McDougall Road is narrows as it hits the old Nazarene Church, so it's nice to see that snow gone and widening. And if you haven't heard already or seen, we're going to get another 10, 15 centimeters of snow tonight. So I'm just hoping we have enough money in our snow removal budget for this coming year, because we've already got 4 times the amount of snow right now than we did at this time last year. Also, that is a great idea to turn Connie Bear Park into a winter wonderland. I don't know if any of you have been to High Level. They have around their town hall area a path that winds up through the trees and stuff, and the trees are all lit up, and it's actually a skating walking path. That is looks really sharp over there in High Level. So it'd be nice if, like you said, Councillor Couvret, if somebody would approach the town and say, this is what we'd like to do, can you help us? You know, the town would probably be more than glad to help. If they can make the paths, maybe borrow some water from the water truck and do whatever. The trees at this time of year, you just stand them up and freeze them in would be a great thing to do. But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor MacArthur. Councillor Cox.
Thank you. First, I'd like to start by thanking the Royal Canadian Legion 239 for their Remembrance Day video that they distributed last week for Remembrance Day. Much appreciated to the volunteers who made that happen in the absence of a face-to-face commemoration ceremony for the town, and in the rec center, I guess, an indoor ceremony. I understand there was a wreath. The wreaths were also laid at the cenotaph. So thank you to the local Legion for making that happen. On the same day, on Remembrance Day, we also found out we have our first cases of COVID in the community. I want to thank town staff, specifically Katie Reed, for working with the communications committee on that stat holiday to help get the town's news, the town's messaging about that news out and distributed to residents. On that note, I wish the family a full and quick recovery and thank them for isolating responsibly. And thank you to residents in the community for adhering to restrictions, including wearing masks. I've noticed a lot more mask wearing since we became aware of the cases in our own community. I would also like to reiterate Councillor Couvret's message about the importance of shopping local and supporting local businesses during the pandemic, especially during the pandemic, during this Christmas shopping season. And last but not least, it is our brown bag lunch tomorrow at noon at the arena, and the topics of discussion are the post-secondary education in the community, as well as the renovations to the community and recreation center. So I encourage any residents who are watching to please come to the arena tomorrow, bring your mask, and chat with us about those two topics. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Bolio?
I just got a couple of them. I'd like to send condolences to the Abraham Benwell family on the passing of their daughter. And also congratulations to Sean Toronjo, who is in Vancouver doing criminology. He's in his 3rd year, and he's doing real good with the mark of 93.5 in midterms. And also with what comes to Councillor Couvret had said about the decorations, I had a couple of people come up and request that I put forth to the mayor and council about the Connie Bear Park and Queen Elizabeth Park as a winter wonderland for Christmas, seeing we cannot have big, large family gatherings in our community. Another one was a little bit of a concern with the community across Highway 5, where they have, I guess, the Aurora College training grounds. Just in the back there, there's a bunch of skidoo trails that the teenagers go on. And I was advised that it's mostly all water back there. It's all muskeg, and some of the places are covered up with snow and they are not frozen. And I guess a couple of people have gone through there with their machines and had gotten stuck for almost half a day in over 4 or 5 feet of water. And if there's a teenager going back there without anybody's knowledge, no one's going to be aware of where they are and stuff. So I think we should put out notices or something and advertise to the community of the dangers. And the last one is our border on Highway 5, the Winter Road, and also to the Alberta border on the highway. I know the pandemic is getting more serious now, and it's coming up north at a fast pace. I'm also hearing from parks that they are still going to go ahead with the Winter Road, and their issue is because they have an agreement with Alberta, with the hunters and trappers in Alberta through the Peace Point. So they are maintaining that road. My question is, how secure is our checkpoint at the border crossing between Pine Lake and Border Town and here when they are shut down at 11? And if the road is open for the hunters and trappers in Peace Point, what is stopping the communities coming up from down south? And that's my concerns for now.
Thank you, Councillor Bolio. Councillor Pissinger?
Thank you. I just also too would like to encourage residents to come forward if they have any ideas and stuff for the Winter Wonderland. It sounds like there's a few good ideas out there, and also to like everyone else has mentioned, to shop local, support our local businesses, because if we don't do that, we won't have them. So we have to keep them going in our community. And I too also would like to send my condolences to the Benwell Abraham family. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pissinger. I have a couple of comments, and we'll address some of the comments that Council had this evening. And again, thank you for bringing up the lunch with Council tomorrow at noon. I think that the rec center renovations is the main topic for tomorrow. But we are always interested in thoughts and ideas from community members on all council business, including the post-secondary education. I did receive a call today from a resident in regards to the idea of a winter park, and did recommend to the resident that they send a letter to the town with their thoughts and ideas, and we can go from there. Thank you, Councillor Couvret, for recognizing Movember. I will also recognize that November is Family Violence Prevention Awareness Month. Councillor MacArthur had brought up the snow removal budget, and I believe in the past couple of years we have increased our budget for snow removal to cover some of the overtime. So I think that we hopefully will be good through the end of this year, and we'll be able to take a look at what our budget looks like for next year, understanding that with climate change, how much snow we get is going to be unpredictable. I also echo Councillor Cox in your comments too, thanking the Legion, and would also like to recognize the Reverend Alex Pryor for his service on Remembrance Day. Councillor Bolio, thank you for bringing up the Skidoo trails, and especially I think with our snowfall coming up, and just through the winter and how warm it's been, even just a reminder for people to not go out alone, that they should travel in pairs. And I also pass on my condolences to the Benwell Abraham family. There was a question in regards to the border on Highway 5 and the security at the border and what is happening with the border. So my understanding right now is that and this may change, my understanding right now is that the road will be maintained to Peace Point, possibly to Moose Island. And that the with the water levels being so high that the road to Fort McMurray may not be able to be completed, and that puts the community at, or would put the community at Fort Chip in a position where they're not able to get fuel deliveries. So I'm not sure at what point they are at currently, but we have been in discussions with Parks and with Protect NWT. If the road is built that goes to Fort Chip, there would be 24-hour service at the border crossing, is my understanding in speaking with our local Protect NWT enforcement. And I just would like to pass on my thanks to the affected family in Fort Smith who have been confirmed to have COVID, for following the proper isolation procedures and thereby protecting the community in Fort Smith. So in the last week, we've seen 5 cases of COVID-19 in Fort Smith. At the same time, we've seen our friends, family, and neighbors in Nunavut go from 1 case to the last reported was 60 cases. Since March, we've pushed for a lockdown across the territory. The municipalities have, and this lockdown works when people comply, and we trust in our community members and our neighbors to follow the rules and regulations that have been put in place by the Chief Public Health Officer. We'll continue to respond here at the town to protect our staff, and we'll continue to follow the measures and changes that are currently and will be put in place by the Chief Public Health Officer. Hospitals down south are becoming overwhelmed. Our services in the north are limited, and we've known that since the beginning of the pandemic. However many more respirators or whatever new medical equipment we may get across the north, it will not be enough if COVID-19 spreads into the territory. The best measure that we can take is to continue to be diligent, and that means that as community leaders, we need to set the example, and we also need to support our local businesses in the work that they are doing. If you see people who are not following the measures that are put in place, please say something. If somebody is not following the isolation protocols, report it. Do not try to police them yourselves. Be responsible for our community members. Be responsible, use common sense, keep your bubble small. Even when you are within your bubble, use care. Don't invite 15 people out and sit shoulder to shoulder with them. Keep your groups small and really don't sit shoulder to shoulder with anybody who is not within your household. We can limit the cases in the north, but we all need to be a part of that. It's going to be hard, especially with the holidays coming up, but COVID-19 is not going away anytime soon, and we need to be diligent. So be kind, be thoughtful, be patient, support your community, and support your local businesses. And as was brought up earlier this evening, as we start getting close to December and people are starting to shop for the holidays, we recognize and appreciate that since March, our local businesses have struggled to provide service to us, to stay open, to pay their employees. Throughout the years, year after year, the businesses have donated to sports teams, to school events, to various fundraisers. Before you look at shopping online, please shop local. Amazon is not feeding families in Fort Smith, and our local businesses are, and let's continue to support them as they work hard for us. The more that we can do to support our businesses, we support our neighbors, our friends, our families, and our economy. Those are my comments for this evening. Mr. Morrison?
Thank you, Your Worship. Hard act to follow. I have nothing written. Before I go into the 3 items added to the agenda, I'll just touch on some of the things brought forward by council. Yeah, I've been hunting in the bush, and with the early snowfall, before it got cold, the snow is actually acting as an insulating layer at this point and keeping the ice from forming up. And I've been going through, snowmobiles have been going through, vehicles have been going through, people who should know better have been going through. And so that's a great idea. We'll get a notification out to residents to be safe, because the thing is, there's lots of standing water now where there wasn't water before. And it's not that you're going to drown, it's just that if you get your snowmobile through the ice, your snowmobile isn't going anywhere anymore. It'll freeze solid, and that's the end of it. And you can be trapped out there. A lot of people dress like their snowmobile is going to get them home, and maybe they should think about dressing like their snowmobile isn't going to get them home, just so they can last a little while out there. So we'll get that message out. I hear a lot of talk about winter park. Someone had a great idea, then perhaps gets angry when the town doesn't do something about it. We don't necessarily have resources for a winter park, but we'd certainly have a conversation with them if they came and asked us. This is not a new idea. ABC and RAB actually moved to name the park beside the arena, McPherson Park. After his Soul Santa Claus initiative, we wrapped the trees in lights, and we had ice carving sculptures out there, and we really worked hard to promote it as a winter and a Christmas venue. And we really didn't see any resident uptake. No one stepped forward to support, to help out, to contribute in any manner. So while this sounds like a great idea, we tried it and didn't get any help. So, maybe people are more willing to contribute now. I would know that we have been approached by ITI, and ITI is a whole new department with the exit of their past superintendent. And what they're willing to do is offer up the Queen Elizabeth Campground as a winter park venue. So what that means, if you've ever been to Edmonton, where you can sit and drive through, I think it's called the River Valley Park or the Riverside Park, and you can drive through and there's lights set up as you drive along. The idea would be something like that. Our economic development officer is working with ITI to flesh out the ideas, but basically you could book a campsite where you could set up your lights and your display, and then there could be a place where residents in the safety and the comfort and the isolation of their own family vehicles can drive through the park to see the various displays put up by residents. So we're just trying to figure out what that looks like, how we can incorporate it with the Christmas light contest that is already in place. If we can find additional funds, maybe there's third-party money we can access for it. So the conversations have just started, I think, today about this initiative. So we're going to do something, and if there are engaged residents that want to participate, come talk to us. We're certainly willing to listen to you. We can't do it all alone. We love people to help us out. And then finally, the winter road. As the mayor said, ultimately the concern is that with the high water, that they won't be able to put the road in between Chip and McMurray. And they don't want to isolate Chip. And so they have to make provisions for people to be able to get into Chip from Fort Smith. And so what they're talking about doing at this point is roughing in the road, but keeping it closed to traffic until they make a determination if Chip will have an access from McMurray. If not, they will most likely be opening the road north to Fort Smith. Presumably, they will be maintaining the road regardless to Peace Point, and I think talk also to Moose Island for some hunting access. And the word from Protect NWT is if there is access to southern Alberta, or southern with respect to us, that they would put full border controls in place. My interpretation of that is that it would be full restrictions as well. So not going across the border necessarily to ski or go to the gun range or walk your dogs without having to self-isolate upon return. But I haven't heard the full details on that. And so I think that everybody's sort of waiting to see what Parks Canada's next step is on the issue. And I think the lobby here is not with Parks Canada, but with southern governments to take the pressure off Parks Canada, so they're not being forced to meet what would otherwise be contractual requirements to put that road in, if that makes sense. So I'll use that as a way to transition into a quick COVID update. So we're all wearing masks. Even the sergeant had a very tactical mask on. I don't know if you saw that, and it went right around his head, kept it on real good. 5 cases in Fort Smith. If you look at these stats, there's twice as many cases now on a daily basis as there were at the height of the pandemic in March. So as kind of the one who calls EMO together in Fort Smith and the guy who runs the town, I'm not that concerned. Because in March, when we did our job in anticipation of this many cases nationally. We did our job in anticipation of people getting COVID in Fort Smith. And so we're just doing our jobs, and all the systems we have in place, all the things we do, all the protocols that we were told to observe by the chief public health officer are sufficient and adequate to keep us safe. So all we have to do is what we were doing in March. Just continue to do it. And our communities will continue to be safe. And proof in pudding is that, sure, we had a person who traveled south for whatever reason, contracted the virus, did what they were supposed to do when they came back north, and it hasn't spread, right? Everything that was supposed to happen happened. Now, I'll be first to say it was a relatively comfortable summer, right? COVID dropped to almost 0 cases per day. We kind of forgot about it unless we needed to go to Edmonton for something. We went, oh yeah, pandemic, right? So fine, let's move on. Let's pick ourselves up, say, hey, you know what? We got a little bit slack over the summer. Let's start following the rules again. And so if there is any message out there, it's the message that the mayor gave just remember March. Remember to wear your masks. Remember to keep your social distance, to wash your hands, to not touch your face so much. I have a hard time with that. I'm a twitchy guy, right? To wipe down the toilet and the door handles a little more frequently than you would before. Follow the rules. And that is truly our only response, is just to sort of do what we were supposed to be doing previously. And if we stopped, start again. That's it. Otherwise, the town is looking at, business continuity. We're refreshing our review of business continuity. And this is kind of the thing about, if we get a bunch of people sick in the town, can we still continue to provide services? And we're still doing the same things we did in March. And the things we put in place in March, splitting the shifts at the water plant, for example, so that if one shift gets it, it won't affect the other shift and we can keep on making water. We still have the plexiglass barricades in front of the town hall front desk, in our pickup trucks between drivers to slow transmission. We're doing all the same things. We're also looking at business continuity in the private sector. And one of the things we've seen is that even though there's a lot more cases, the whole world has learned how to work with COVID since March. And there's no anticipated impacts on the supply stream. We're still going to get food. We're still going to get heating oil. There are no concerns there. And we're going to continue to keep our rec centers open until we're told to by the chief public health officer. They're the ones that say, you know what, it's getting a little sporty out there. We're going to step back to phase 1. And then what we do as the town is we say, okay, town hall by appointment only, rec center will go back to lockdown with just the childcare programs. We'll do that. We haven't been told to do that yet. So realize there are twice as many cases per day now than there were in March, but we're actually doing more business now than we were in March. And so we're looking at what kind of pressures that'll create. And that's just going to be on consumable things like masks, because there'll be more masks getting worn and things like that. So we're looking to make sure we have those kinds of supplies in place. Making sure, that our janitorial services didn't slip over the summer, that we didn't get lazy in town hall, and we're taking care of all that stuff. We had our first EMO meeting last Friday, and it went relatively good. There was a little bit of acrimony in the meeting, perhaps coming from some of the elected officials that attended. And that comes from, I think, lack of information. And the town suffered from lack of information. We found out about the cases in Fort Smith through cabin radio. Everybody found out in cabin radio. That's what they call policy via press release, right? Now we've dug down into that a little bit, because there was all kinds of people that weren't happy about that. Realize a big part of our job is to manage public perception, right? Say, hey, everybody stay calm. Give the same message that I'm giving you. Just keep on doing what you're doing. Same message that the mayor gave. Wear a mask. Maintain your distance. Don't gather in large groups. Just keep on doing that. And that's the kind of message we want to give. But we need to be ahead of incidents like this when a case shows up in the community. We need to be leading the news, saying, hey, this is happening. This is why. Don't worry about it. But instead, they're finding out from the radio. And so, that starts all the skepticism and the conspiracy theory. And I had to tell the EMO, I said, if you're going to start sort of going out on thought exercises about what may have happened and what may have happened, why don't you make the assumption that people were doing their jobs, right? That Department of Health is doing their job. Protect NWT is doing their job, because all the things I'm seeing is that they are. The isolation is happening and the community is safe, right? So I think that, we have to work on the information flow. In this particular case, what we found out is that the guy responsible for letting us know traveling at the time, right? It was a day off. It was a holiday. It was Remembrance Day. Think about it. This is where we talk about business continuity. Who does your job when you're not there? Who does your job when you're sick with COVID? I'd love to see Protect NWT and put that same kind of thought into business continuity. So if something like this happens when a person isn't available, that they're still able to get the messages out to the people involved, right? So let's learn from that experience is the message we've got out about making sure we get the information. And that will really, I think, kind of take down some of the sort of the heightened acrimony that we've seen in some situations in the community. And, you hear a lot of third party stuff, but I heard from so-and-so that so-and-so saw somebody doing something that might not be allowed. If you have a concern about that, there's a 811 number, there's an email address, pick up the phone, tell people. Facebook's not going to go call Protect NWT for you, right? Pick up the phone, make the call. If you're uncertain if what they're doing is right or wrong, do some research. All that information is on the Protect NWT website. The rules and regulations around travel haven't changed since June 24th. I checked. People should know what the regulations are. You hear this. I saw a person supposed to be self-isolating outside. You're allowed to go for a walk. You're allowed to be outside, right? You're supposed to stay away from people. That's all. So I think that, people need to inform themselves. We can only do so much to inform people. And people also have to inform themselves and not assume the worst all the time, right? Having said that, again, council did a commendable job on Remembrance Day of having a message out immediately. And again, I appreciate the thanks to my staff that supported you and realize that there is not a single person in this town who would not show up on a day off, on a holiday, in the middle of the night to do what had to be done to support council and residents in dealing with things like this or anything that might be seen as a threat. So that's the quick COVID update for council. Sorry, high horse, but
Mr. Morrison, you still have the floor.
Perfect. We'll move on to a donation request from the Northwest Territories Health and Social Services Authority. Unfortunately, I don't have the correspondence where the donation was requested, but basically it's community counseling services requesting items to be made available in a raffle, revenue generation, etc. There is a description. They're asking for some adult punch passes because they're looking for things that promote recreation and community engagement. You're provided information, the cost, $308. You have over $1,500 remaining in the donations budget, and Christmas pressures are not seen to exceed the available amount. So it's within your ability to give, I should say.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Councillor Cox.
I move that the town donate 4 punch passes for a total cost of $308 to support the Community Counseling Services National Addictions Awareness Week.
Can I get a seconder? Councillor Couvret. Discussion? All in favor? Abstentions? Favor? Are you in favor? Thank you. Passed unanimously. Mr. Morrison.
Thank you. The last item on my list is a DPA 036-20 home occupation permit. It is a person who wishes to have a home occupation for communications and photography. It's Jane Murray. She owns the property upon which the business is to occur. And as per usual, Director of Corporate Services has given her the 3rd degree to ensure she will not impact her neighbors nor the traffic patterns around her home.
Thank you. Councillor Cox.
I move that DPA 036-20 home occupation permit, communications and photography for Jane Murray be adopted as presented. Did I read that right? Be approved.
Thank
Thank
you. Can I get a seconder, please? Counselor MacArthur? Discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Passed unanimously. Mr. Morrison, I believe those were your three. Thank you. We have no proclamations this evening, and so we will move on to excusing of councillors. Councillor Cox.
I move that Councillor Westwell be excused from the Corporate Services Standing Committee meeting on November 3rd, 2020.
Thank you. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Pissinger. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Are you in favor? I didn't see your hand up. Okay, thank you. Passed unanimously. For community and municipal services, Councillor Cox.
I move that Deputy Mayor Smith and Councillor MacArthur be excused from the Community and Municipal Services Standing Committee meetings on November 10th, 2020.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Couvret. Discussion? All in favor? Abstentions? One abstention. Councillor MacArthur. Motion is passed. And for our regular meeting of council, Councillor MacArthur.
I move that Councillor Westwell, Councillor Campbell, and Deputy Mayor Smith be excused from the regular meeting of council on November 17th, 2020.
Thank you. Can I get a seconder for the motion, please? Councillor Pissinger. Discussion? We did hear from Councillor Campbell, Councillor Westwell, and Deputy Mayor Smith that they would not be able to attend this evening due to reasons as listed in the council bylaw and procedures. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Thank you. Passed unanimously. Date of our next council meetings. We have Corporate Services Standing Committee meeting on December 1st, Community and Municipal Services Standing Committee meetings on December 8th, and our regular meeting of council on December 15th. Before we move to adjourn, are there any councillors who would like to notify of absences for any of the meetings coming up? Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Councillor Cox.
I move that the meeting be adjourned at 8:23 p.m.
Thank you. Seconder for the motion, Councillor Pissinger. Discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Motion is passed unanimously. Have a good night. Motion is adjourned, or meeting is adjourned.